Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Total NASL Roundtable. I'm joined by Mike Carney. How are you today, Mike?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, so let's start talking about the NASL TV deal. It hasn't been officially announced, but there's so much chatter. Some people closer to sources inside the NASL and people that know a lot more than we do. So last week we were speculating a bit more and talking about how maybe CBS might be a great deal, but now we're hearing that Bein Sports might be the TV deal for the NASL. So what are your thoughts on Bein Sports if it is made official in the next couple of days?
My first thought is I don't know how many actual viewers are able to get Bein Sports compared to One World Sports or CBS Sports. But I know it's out there and I know it exists. When NASL signed up for One World Sports, I had never heard of One World Sports before, but I at least know what Bein Sports is. My first reaction is Ray Hudson is a color commentator for Bein Sports. So when you hear Ray Hudson, especially for La Liga games, I've heard lobsters, three-ring circuses, and Lionel Messi all in one sentence. So that's going to be really cool if they can get him to broadcast NASL games. The second thing I know is that Bein Sports is all around the world. So they're in Latin America. There's one in the United States and located in Miami. I know they used to be a part of Al Jazeera, but broke away. So they're in the Middle East. And I know that their CEO of Bein Sports or Bein Media, the actual global Bein Media, is also chairman of the board for PSG. So if they can do well, the NASL can do well here in the United States, maybe that can open some doors to be showcased around the world, which would be huge, I think, for the NASL. So those are some things I look at. But the biggest thing that I really look at, besides having access to that global market, is there's a gold mine out there, and I don't think that Major League Soccer, USL, and the NASL have really tapped into, and that gold mine is the Hispanic community here in the United States. And I think if they're able to get Bein Sports to hop on board, because they show La Liga games, because they show South American and Central American games, especially for World Cup qualifiers. Bein Sports had the rights for the last World Cup for the U.S. men's national team to showcase all their away games. So if they're able to tap into that Hispanic community, that's going to open up massive doors in getting those names and getting those teams in those communities and going into markets that the MLS has struggled with really the last 20 years. So that's going to be huge, especially because I've seen and I've had Bein Sports before, and sometimes it's in English, sometimes it's in Spanish. So I have no idea when I watch a game what language it's going to be in. I know I'm able to watch soccer, but I don't know if it's going to be in Spanish or English. So being able to tap into that gold mine, that Hispanic community, is going to be huge long term here in the United States, at least for the NASL. So that's what I look at it as.
So Bob Williams, a guy that's really known within soccer media and knows what he's talking about, and he knows people. He tweeted out about at 5:57. He says that he has just learned that the first Bein Sports match during the spring season is the Fort Lauderdale Strikers versus Miami FC. So that's a great matchup. They're going to call it a derby matchup. And
Right.
Just think of the coverage of that match. Bein Sports, their headquarters, their studios are in Miami. So this should be maybe a on-location match because, as we all know, Bein Sports, they are not on location in most of their European matches that they show. They're just in a studio in Miami. So, yeah, this is going to be a match that they would cover the hell out of, really, or they should, because it's a local derby, if you want to call it that, and it's Miami FC's first matchup as well. So both sides are talking so much trash right now, but it's all going to go down that night. Also,
No,
yeah.
no, I was just going to say to your point that's a good point because a lot of the games that you see on Bein Sports, they're in studio and they're not actually at the soccer event.
Hmm.
So there's no point why they can't be at Fort Lauderdale Miami FC game. I'm sure it's literally minutes away from their studio or their headquarters, wherever they're located at in Miami. So that was my point to that.
Hmm. And I think it was Tuesday, I believe. Bill Peterson, he had a conference call, and when he had that, I thought this was going to be announced. Okay, Bein Sports TV deal, but it didn't go that way. It was sort of talking about and expanding their deal with One World Sports. They did away with their paywall, so now people who don't have or who never had access to One World Sports now is going to have access to One World Sports online. So that really has a big reach now. So now One World Sports is going to be in a lot more people's homes, on a lot more people's computer screen. And now people like Mike, who last season was not able to really get a hold of One World Sports, now you can actually see what's going on. They're even going to have a match of the week as well on a Saturday night. I forgot what match it's going to debut, but I believe it's a Rowdies matchup. So it's just exciting just to see how last year we just had ESPN3 and One World Sports, which didn't reach so many homes at the time, but now we're seeing Bein Sports coming together, ESPN3 and One World Sports. It's just so exciting to see that the league is growing, and we're still very young. A lot of people said 10 years from now you're going to have your national TV deal, but it looks like we're having something like that right now. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's just very exciting.
Right, and I think the first game on One World Sports this spring is the Tampa Bay Rowdies versus Indy 11, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that's huge because that was my concern, and that was my first question I raised is, if One World Sports or BN start covering NASL games, are we still going to be able to go on the NASL website and watch reruns of old games? Because what I like to do is after the game, come home and then watch it either locally, the Indy 11 games locally on TV, or watch it on the computer. So that way, when I'm typing up something for Total NASL or for my own blog, I can actually go back and reference it. So hopefully that's still available. Or if people can't come to the game and they can still access it on their computer or the league's website. So, and I also do think it's interesting. I can't remember his name, but he is Ray Hudson's partner on Bein Sports.
Mhm.
They did an interview. They interviewed him. The Inside NASL or the league actually interviewed him in January. So I thought that was kind of ironic that now all of a sudden Bein is becoming a partner in the NASL, and they kind of like a precursor or a preview of that was actually this interview. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and the guy that Mike is talking about, his name is Phil Shane, and he's a great play-by-play announcer. He really knows what he's talking about, basically. And to just have him, and I don't like. This is something that I have a question about. I don't know if you may know the answer, but with Bein Sports potentially having this deal with the NASL, are we going to see Bein Sports commentators get in there and talk about the NASL, or are we going to see our NASL guys continue covering the broadcast for the matches each week?
Right, that's a good question because I know for like ESPN3, they would cover it, but they would do all the equipment and everything. They would have no equipment or anything involved with it. They would just tap into the local TV station and broadcast it. I don't know. That's to be seen. If they can get Ray Hudson to call a game, that'd be awesome. But if not, that's still, I mean, huge to be on Bein Sports, though, regardless of who's broadcasting or who's doing play-by-play.
Even though they're showing matches in this country, I still don't see them sending Ray Hudson around the country just talking
No,
about the NASL. So it doesn't matter. We like our guys. You know what I mean? We like our local commentators. You love Greg Rexshort. he's the best guy in Indiana. You
Yep.
know what I mean? So it would feel weird not having him call the matches.
Right.
Here in New York, we have JP Dellacamera, Shep Messing, and if you just throw Ray Hudson in there, you'd be like, well, he's not a Cosmos legend. You know what I mean? So, yeah, maybe once in a while having Ray Hudson call a match, or maybe the match of the week for Bein Sports, or however they have it, which still has to be announced. And I think once it is announced, a lot of people are going to be excited about this. I saw a figure that Bein Sports reaches a couple of million homes. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if that's a big reach. And the first time that this league would have that big of a reach. Also, and this is the last topic or the last part of the TV deal that we are going to talk about. Also, Bein Sports has over 10 channels on their online platform, Bein Sports Connect. So they might show one match or as many matches as they could on their channel, and then they have 10 channels online that they can have each NASL match that night or that weekend. So
Right.
that just goes to show how big of a presence Bein Sports can be.
Right. No, and I mean, just to follow up with that, I mean, they show more than just soccer on there. So being able to capture all sports is huge, and soccer being one of their biggest one. So it'll be interesting to see if Major League Soccer changes their deals with anyone, or if ESPN or NBC Sports Network changes their deal with MLS, just to make sure that NASL all of a sudden doesn't start creeping into their networks. So that'll be interesting as well.
What's weird about ESPN is that they show some MLS matches, but they don't really cover the league fully. Like, you don't see so much coverage when they're not showing the match. And I think that's my hope with Bein Sports, is that even though there might not be a NASL match, say this weekend, or let's say it's midweek, I still want to hear some chat about the league.
Right.
Maybe like a special show like how One World Sports is having. They're having a NASL this week. They're bringing that back as well. So if they would have, say, like a highlight show, or like on Bein Sports Monday nights, they have a show called The Locker Room. So if they just add an extra topic, the NASL, that would be huge. Just to have some chat going besides us, you know what I mean, throughout the week.
Right. So and that could be why they decided to go with Bein Sports and not CBS Sports Network. This could be I don't know how much of an impact those 30-minute to an hour shows have on the league, but to talk about it outside of just the game that was played on Saturday or Sunday night, that's only going to bring more viewers in. And I mean, any press is good press, right? So the more press that they're out there, the more people that talk about it, and the more people that cover them, it's only going to enhance the product that the NASL is presenting. And I know we shouldn't always say the product, because that's what the MLS focuses on more than anything. But I mean, they at least do more than just talk about the game.
Yeah, so let's shy away from the TV deal. Hopefully we hear something soon, and that's what is leading towards, that in a couple of days we are going to hear potentially a Bein Sports NASL TV deal. Hopefully. I'm hoping for it. Mike's hoping for it. We're all hoping for it. You know what I mean? Hopefully you guys are hoping for it as well. Let's go towards Indy 11. Mike, has there been any news or anything that is worth noting about Indy 11 so far?
They've struggled this preseason, especially in their games lately against Louisville City and St. Louis. Last night they did beat Butler University 1-0 at Grant Park on the north side of Indianapolis. And then tomorrow they travel down to the University of Louisville, where Dylan Mares played his freshman and sophomore year before transferring to IU. But they play University of Louisville tomorrow night. That's their last preseason game before they take on the Tampa Bay Rowdies on April 2nd. So, but they've struggled lately. One, because of injuries. Two, because a new coaching philosophy, a new teaching style that the players have to learn. A whole new roster, several additions to the squad. So, everybody, I think, is trying to get used to one another and trying to adjust to who everybody is and what the new style of play is going to be and the new coaching style. And they're struggling now, which to me as a a fan and as a coach, that's a good thing. I want them to struggle now in the preseason because I know that they're going to work on things or at least hit on some things and at least talk about and work out some things that are, where they're struggling and some of their weaknesses and and at least focus on those things. So come season, they know what they have to do in order to be successful. And they're not going to go into the spring season overly confident and underestimate those opponents. Whereas, some of these other teams, they're having a lot of success this preseason. They're having these extravagant, wonderful preseasons, whether that be in Europe or in Mexico, or wherever, or Asia, or wherever they're going. And, Indy 11's not. So hopefully those teams are peaking at least from an Indy 11, fan perspective. Hopefully those teams are peaking and Indy 11's going to peak at that right time because they know what it's like to struggle preseason and they've been through that adversity already. So when those dog days of summer start approaching, they know what to do and they know how to handle it. Whereas these other teams may not be able to because they didn't have to struggle during the preseason. And they didn't struggle coming out of the gates for the spring season. So that's my take on the latest on, Indy 11 and preseason and stuff like that.
Talking about change about Indy 11, there has been so much change. Sort of like a new roster put together, brand new manager coming in. And he has experience, you know what I mean? So he should be able to be like, I know what I'm doing. I coach the Scorpions. We got so far with the Scorpions. He can make the ship go right.
Right. And the only thing that concerns me is after the game against Louisville here in Indianapolis, he had some comments. And so it sounded like he's been frustrated with some of the things that have been going on. And I hope that, that's done and over with because, when he was with, Tampa Bay, Colorado, when he was with, as you mentioned, San Antonio, or even in Jamaica, when he came in, he had these quick starts that were successful, and this isn't going as planned. And so I'm hoping that he's not, Tim Hankinson, that is, Indy 11's new head coach, isn't going to get frustrated quickly by some of the events that occurred here. So, so that's my take on that.
Does it sort of make you nervous as an Indy 11 supporter that your brand new manager during preseason is becoming frustrated? This could become, if things don't go right during the spring season, could we see maybe him leaving on his own at the end of the spring season, or maybe him becoming being sacked or being fired? Do you see that potentially happening?
I don't think it's going to be that extreme because him and Tim Regan brought in these players. And you have to remember Tim Hankinson is the third head coach / interim head coach in Indy 11's history, and they've only been around for 3 years. So they're entering their third season as a club in the NASL. So I don't see that happening. I was kind of surprised that he came out and said those things. But at the same time, he has this experience. He knows what it takes to be successful. So I'm not worried about those comments. And hopefully, that gets some people's attention. So, but at the same time, though, too, guys like Steven Drew, Dino Williams, they're hurt, they're injured. So, the Indy 11 hasn't been able to play a full strength squad yet compared to some of these other teams in the preseason.
Yeah, I brought up that question because Tim hasn't really had a long enough stay with any club. Well, this might be his shortest stay with the club if he does leave during the spring or after the spring. But hopefully that doesn't happen. We want to see Indy do somewhat decency. I
don't see him leaving. I know he has talked about, and the players have really talked about pushing for the playoffs. So if that's the ultimate goal, that's the ultimate goal. And why wouldn't it be for any team in the NASL or the playoffs or postseason or championship or whatever the league prefers to call it? But I mean, that has to be, the pinnacle for any team in this league. So if those are the expectations and they're not hitting it right now or where he thinks they're progressing, I mean, he has the experience to make the adjustments. And just like any player or any coach or teacher, if you have these expectations or if your philosophy is not, being fully implemented by the players right away or the students right away, you always make adjustments. And you adjust your goals, personally and as a coach, and you adjust them as a team, and you adjust them for each player. So then that way they can start hitting those tiny benchmarks leading up to the big one and getting over those hurdles and progressing forward, and then finally starting to hit the marks that he wants them to hit, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so we're gonna close out the show in a bit, but let's talk about something from Oklahoma, from Rayo OKC. They signed 3 players today, so they're actually going in a great direction right now. They signed Yuma. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. Yuma. He is a veteran player, and he used to play for Rayo Vallecano. So that's a very experienced midfielder. They signed 2 players domestically, one from the Carolina Railhawks, Footy Danzo, and they also signed Ryan Johnson as well from the Portland Timbers. The Portland Timbers, they won the MLS Cup last year. So bringing in very experienced players, and that's what's cool about Rayo OKC is that they're not just bringing in experienced players from abroad, but they're doing well bringing in players from this country, from the United States. So that's very exciting. Also, Chris Bronick, a writer down there in Oklahoma, has said that both professional teams in Oklahoma have signed TV deals locally. So that's exciting as well, because a lot of people have been questioning, can both teams survive in this market? Well, it looks like they could, because 2 TV networks want both of them on their channels. So that is very exciting. And that just shows how any 2 teams can survive in any city.
Right. And from the outside looking in, I mean, you just don't see Oklahoma City being a breeding ground for soccer, or having this much thirst for the game, and having not just the OKC energy, but now Rayo OKC in there as well. So I think they're both going to hit different markets within Oklahoma City, but within those markets, there's those communities and those markets are huge, and they're going to hit them hard and be successful at that. On paper, I mean, Rayo OKC has done a tremendous job building a formidable and respectable roster heading into this season. So only time will tell how they actually do, because new expansion teams don't always do well in the NASL right out of the gate. You saw that with Indy 11. You saw that a little bit with Ottawa in their first season, and you saw that last year with Jacksonville. So only time will tell on that part. But in terms of actually putting together a roster on paper, I mean, this could be the most dangerous roster in the league right now as we stand. But so it'll be interesting to see how quickly they can get up to pace and adjust the NASL and the travel and stuff like that. But it's going to be exciting times in Oklahoma City and the league for sure.
Yeah, so we're going to close out the show right now. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. You can follow us on Twitter at Total NASL. And if you have any thoughts on or comments about what we say, leave that in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on a potential TV deal with Bein Sports and the NASL? That's actually a very exciting announcement when that is released, and we will try to have some reaction for that as well when we have the official news, because hopefully we hear what kind of shows they might have, because with One World Sports, when they announced a lot more, they came out and said what their partnership with the league was going to be. So we hope for that when that is announced. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe as well, and we will see you guys next week.
And before we go, shout out to Indy 11 East End. I have their brand new scarf. So sun in our eyes, 11 in our hearts. So shout out to the Indy 11 East End for putting this together.
So if any of our viewers may want to pick up one of those scarves and they don't live in Indiana, how would they go about that?
Shoot me a tweet or tweet Indy 11 East End, or that's basically the best way to go about that.
Okay, so thank you, Mike. We will see everyone next week, and we will be previewing this great NASL spring season campaign. So see you guys real soon.